News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm John Tucker.
And I'm Karen Moskow.
And Karen, let's start with the latest on Iran. U.S. and Iranian officials have agreed to more nuclear talks as soon as next week after the latest round of discussions in Geneva. Now let's get the latest from Bloomberg Middle East correspondent Jemana Brzezinski.
Well, it was a long day of talks, and Bloomberg reporting this as well as other outlets that the U.S. side were disappointed with some of the options that Iran had presented. That being said, at the end of the day, the mediator, Oman, the foreign minister there, put out a statement saying that talks will reconvene again. And the Omani mediator also citing, quote, significant progress, also echoed by the Iranian foreign ministry as well. That we haven't had formal comments come through from the U.S., but what we do understand from earlier on in the session is that they were not utterly pleased with what the Iranians had presented.
Bloomberg's Jemana Brzezinski says unlike nuclear talks under prior U.S. administrations, the Iranians have taken the lead in crafting written proposals and brought them to the Americans.
Well, staying overseas, John, Pakistan's defense minister declared, quote, open war with Afghanistan after both sides carried out cross-border strikes overnight that killed dozens. The clash marks a major escalation in tensions between the two neighbors. Relations between Pakistan and Afghanistan have steadily broken down in the year since the return of the Afghan Taliban in 2021, following the withdrawal of U.S.-led forces.
And now to the latest on the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. Hillary Clinton has denied any association with a convicted sex offender under questioning from congressional investigators. The former Secretary of State spoke to reporters after giving an hours-long deposition.
I did not know Jeffrey Epstein. I never went to his island. I never went to his homes. I never went to his offices. So it's on the record numerous times.
Well, today, her husband, former President Bill Clinton, is set to testify before the House Oversight Committee. Now, Bloomberg's Amy Morris has more from Washington.
Bill Clinton's testimony will be the first time a former president has been forced to testify before Congress. He appears in the Epstein files released by the Department of Justice, one of many names in politics, academia, and business who have appeared in those files both before and after Epstein pleaded guilty in 2008 to prostitution charges. The documents appear to show that Epstein's associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, was part of the Clinton social and professional circle, including fundraisers at political donor events. In Washington, Amy Morris, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, Amy, thank you. Let's turn to the markets now. And Netflix has dropped out of the fight to buy Warner Brothers Discovery, clearing the way for rival bidder Paramount to clinch a $111 billion deal. The streaming giant said while its offer would have passed muster with regulators and created shareholder value, it didn't want to keep bidding. Lucas Shaw has been covering the takeover battle for Bloomberg.
The Warner Brothers board is not really concerned about synergies. I think that if they could have chosen between the two buyers, they preferred Netflix. Netflix is a bigger, stronger, healthier company. But Paramount ultimately offered more money. And a lot of Warner Brothers shareholders preferred Paramount because Paramount's buying the whole company. So they get bought out right now with cash. Whereas the Netflix deal was more of a two-step process where Warner Brothers was going to have to spin out its cable networks and then sell the rest of the company to Netflix.
And that's Bloomberg's Lucas Shaw. Shares of Netflix up 7% in early trading.
And Karen, several other stocks on the move this morning. Shares of Block, they're surging more than 23%. Jack Dorsey's company is reducing its workforce by nearly half. They're cutting 4,000 employees. The financial technology firm is betting that artificial intelligence is going to change the future of labor productivity.
Well, John, Dell shares are up about 12%. The company gave an outlook for sales of its artificial intelligence servers that topped estimates. Dell now says it will generate about $50 billion in AI server revenue in the current fiscal year.
And on the flip side, you have shares of CoreWeave. They're down more than 11%. The company, an operator of AI data centers, reporting a bigger than expected loss. It's also boosting capital expenditures.
Well, elsewhere in the AI space, John, Anthropic is standing its ground when it comes to its artificial intelligence. And Bloomberg's Monica Ricks reports.
Anthropic has rejected the Pentagon's latest offer over the use of its artificial intelligence ahead of a deadline today for the company to drop its safeguards on its AI model or risk losing its government contracts. CEO Dario Amodei says the company remains committed to negotiations and still wants to work with the U.S. military, but can't in good conscience agree to the Pentagon's demands for AI use. He says new contract language falls short in preventing mass surveillance on Americans or for the use of autonomous lethal strikes without a human in the loop. The Pentagon hasn't commented. Monica Ricks, Bloomberg Radio.
We have a programming note. The markets may pause for the weekend, but the world does not. And that's why we're bringing you a new live radio and TV show. Bloomberg This Weekend is looking beyond the daily headlines to the bigger themes driving politics, business, and culture. Join David Gura, Christina Ruffini, and Lisa Mateo for smart conversations and in-depth interviews that help make sense of the week that's been and what comes next. Tomorrow on the show, we'll hear from House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries of New York, and get the show live Saturdays and Sundays from 7 a.m. Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, TV, and the Bloomberg Business app. And that's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Karen Moskow.
I'm John Tucker, and this is Bloomberg.